Hi, I'm Suzanne Castle, and this is the Thought Leader Thursday. I'm here today introducing you to another incredible leader, thinker, doer, and all-around amazing human who's going to help each of us think about our world a little bit differently than anyone else. From artists to teachers, from actors to moms, from the big names to the you didn't know about them till now names, my hope is that you will connect with a leader who helps you light up in your corner of this galaxy. This is the Thought Leader Thursday show. It's that time. I'm so glad you're here. It's the Thought Leader Thursday, and I'm here, Suzanne, and I can't wait to welcome you and introduce you to another incredible leader, a thinker, a doer, and an all-around amazing human who's going to help each of us think just a little bit differently about how we show up in our best physical and internal selves. Whoa, I can't wait for you to meet this amazing special medical guest. But first, okay, Andrew, here we go. I want to know, have you ever done an endurance something or other?
I have not, actually. I've never known exactly where to start. So I'm kind of glad we're talking about this today.
Yes, we are. And I can't wait to introduce you, Dr. Kirstin Lauritzen. She is a personal functional medicine practitioner for high performance and elite athletes. That's not me, but you're going to learn a whole lot about her, I promise. She earned her doctorate in chiropractic and then continued alongside her passion to get a master's in human nutrition and functional medicine. I met her. We were talking about migraines. We were talking about how you can show up as a better self as someone who suffers from cluster migraines. She has been an amazing help for me, and I know she will for you. And you know what she does now? She helps high performers and athletes achieve their peak performance through an integrative health practice. So she looks at health and fitness and mindset all together. She's the founder. She's the owner of her own practice. She's in the Northwest Functional Medicine. She's the founder of drkirstin.com. Dr. K, wow. I'm so glad you're here with us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I can't believe you said yes. You are like super fancy pants, training Olympians, training these high endurance athletes. And you're like, sure, yeah, I'll come on your show in Texas. That sounds amazing.
Of course I would.
Well, thank you so much. Okay, so I have a question for you. When we tend to think of performance, like I think of being on the stage for when I was a ballerina and all that I had to do there. And it was hard and it was tough. And there was mental toughness and there was physical toughness that you do. Definitely to think about eating and sleeping and all those things go together. But when people think about that, sometimes what they focus on is mastering the technique. For me, it was mastering a certain technique at the bar, right? Or they might be mastering a certain technique or craft in the way that they're thinking about that. But when it comes to achieving success in a long-term kind of spectrum way, it's much more than training or learning or mastering a certain topic or skill. So what is the mistake that people make when they're primarily focusing on mastering just the one thing?
Totally. So you pretty much nailed it. Most high performers and elite athletes or just athletes in general have been told that we really need to be focusing on our technique and maybe on strategy. And it's all about the newest tech and all of these different things. But the thing is, though, is that your body is the machine that's allowing that to happen. So what I honestly see most of the time, especially when the athletes end up in my office, is that they've kind of worked themselves into a hole where they have focused so much on performance and so much on these things that we are told are exactly what we need to be doing. And of course, we have to do those things in order to get to that level. But what I do is I help people get to that level so that they don't see this overworked, overtrained body that then eventually forces them to have to rest and slow down, to then reset and recover, to then be able to go back into training, hopefully. And that's part of my job, is helping people do that. But I think the mistake that so many people make is that they focus less on what actually the body needs in order to be able to get those things done. And that's where I do what I do. Well, I fill in those gaps.
It's such an amazing way to think about how to be better aware of your entire self. So even when you're not training for a 100-mile race or something, or you're not training as a ballerina for a show, let's say, you are literally training your body every single day when you wake up. You're training by what you consume in the media, by what you eat, who you hang out with, what your space around you looks like, whether or not you get up and walk around your space, and how much oxygen you get. Like, you are literally telling your body what to focus on and train on. And I think what's so amazing about your approach is you say you can't wait for burnout. You can't wait for someone to fall down. You can't wait for an injury to then start thinking about those things. You need to think about them on the front end so those things don't happen, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. And this doesn't just necessarily apply to elite athletes, right? As you mentioned, it can apply to business owners. It can apply to every single person that is trying to just achieve a goal. And they want to maybe be successful in a different way, whatever that looks like for them. But we can't forget that it's our body that literally helps us be able to do that.
Right.
And so, it requires certain things in order to be able to do its job well.
You're exactly right. And so when it comes to, I mean, that's a great segue, because I talk a lot in my own work about strategy and possibility thinking. And if you're not healthy, whatever that looks like for you, I don't mean a certain size, eating 6 meals a day, whatever it is for you that is healthy, you can't go after that. You can't be that goal getter goddess or god that you're trying to be out in the world, right? So when it comes to joining both health and performance together, then what are a few areas that that you find are important for everyone to evaluate about themselves in their area?
Yeah. So for everybody, inflammation and inflammatory markers are going to be the first step. And we'll talk about this actually in just a little bit, but there are just a few simple labs that anybody can get by just going to their primary care physician and just asking for some few standard labs. But they can evaluate for where you are. Do you have inflammation? Are some of those inflammatory markers getting a little bit on the high side? How are you doing with your blood sugar control? How about hormones? There's so many different areas there that we could potentially dive into, probably at another time. But there's so much as far as like inflammation goes that is the cause of a lot of our chronic diseases. It's the cause of a lot of like migraines, as you mentioned in the beginning, as well as like just things that tend to just plague us. And if we're talking at least with athletes, inflammation is part of what can cause a lot of joint pain and injuries and a lot of those types of things that are problematic. Another thing is making sure that we're getting nutrient-dense food and enough of that food every day so that our body can actually produce energy and be able to do what it needs to do. And part of that is just making sure that you're eating food that really fuels you, that helps to support your body to do that, to do its jobs. And then the last thing too that I would say, there's plenty of other things, but I'd say these are like your top three, is also gut health. And I know that's kind of becoming a little bit more of a keyword, I would say, that people are focusing on a lot more now. But gut health is one thing that for every single person is a very, I would say it's like one of the main places to look if you have anything going on in the body that you are concerned about that's not really working well, or if you are trying to achieve a certain level of performance. Gut health and gut bacteria, and there's so many different things underneath that are separate topics, but having really a good functioning gut means you have a good functioning immune system. It means you're absorbing all of those nutrients from your food. And the bacteria themselves have been known to actually help us do some things as well. So it's really critical to have like all of those three things dialed in when it comes to both health and performance.
I think that's so well said. And you make it so simple and easy to follow. And I'm sitting here going, okay, well, yeah, I mean, okay, that, and that makes it pretty easy. And I know, of course, it's way more complicated than that. And everybody's pH level is different. And where you are hormonally and age and mobility, all of that plays into that. But just to say, start, I say often, you've heard me say 1,000 times, stuck is never the furthest that you can go. Stuck is not a destination, right? Mm-hmm. But we stay stuck when it comes to health sometimes. We're like, well, I don't know. I don't want to go to the doctor. Well, I don't know. Well, I'll just eat another bowl of ice cream because that makes me feel better. Well, it really doesn't make you feel better, right? And so I think that what you do is you break that down and say there is a path forward. And what is one thing we can do today to help you? And it doesn't have to be so complicated. And that's some of your genius out in the world. And I love the way that you take kind of those simple steps that people can take to bridge that gap that people are feeling and seeing between health and peak performance. So give us a couple of clues or steps that people could take if they were trying to achieve better goals and being kind of a whole person, holistically and whole from the inside out, to help people have success for the long term.
Yeah, so a couple of things standard. You can work with somebody like me, a functional medicine practitioner that works with athletes or high performers, or you can just honestly, it's as simple as this. You go into your doctor's office, whoever your primary care physician is, and you say, hey, this year I'm really prioritizing my health, and I would like to just get some standard labs that show us what's going on. So you can ask for something like a complete blood count. You can ask for a metabolic panel. You can ask them to also run something called vitamin D that you might know.
Yes.
It's a very popular thing right now, but you can run vitamin D. You can also ask them to run vitamin B12. You can have them just run a standard thyroid panel and hormone panel just to see where you're at. And then also really easy too is you can ask them to run something called HbA1c. It's hemoglobin A1c. And basically what it just does is it checks to see how you're doing with your blood sugar. All of those give you so much information as far as just what's going on in your body. Oh, and one other thing, you can also ask for something called C-reactive protein. It's an inflammatory marker that they can test to see how you're doing as far as inflammation goes. Another thing that you can do is, this is something you can easily do from home, is make sure that you're eating enough food, first off, in your day to support your goals. Because food equals fuel. Food helps your body be able to do its job, and under eating will slow down your metabolism. It'll cause all sorts of other problems. So making sure that you're eating enough food that's also very colorful. I say this, try to eat the rainbow of fruits, vegetables, good quality protein, and some good starchy carbs and things like that in there, and some good solid fat like from avocados and organic extra virgin olive oils and all sorts of stuff like that. If you can just eat the rainbow every single day, you're going to be filling in a lot of the gaps as far as those nutrient goes, and those nutrient dense foods. It's going to be, you'll feel great. If you do it for a couple of weeks, you'll already see a difference. And then I would say from there, if you do all of that and then you're looking to go a step further, it's getting a nutrient panel run that's going to show you more than what we saw in those standard labs, and also running a gut health panel so we can actually see what's going on there. But that would be your 3 steps. Start here and then work your way into more deep learning from there.
So what do you think about, you see those commercials out and about, and they come up and they're like, oh, take this food sensitivity test or whatever, and da-da-da. I don't, gosh, I should probably be really careful right here because somebody might be watching that wants to sponsor this show sometime. But I just don't know how much quality that I put into those versus actually talking to. I have a tight circle of medical practitioners that help me show up every day, right? And I trust them more than I do like a mail-in test, because let's face it, it's not the mail-in test. It's usually user error right here that might mess up the test. So
Sure.
if you're not getting, like, if someone goes into their office and they're not getting the answers they want, what would be a different solution for them?
Yeah, there's a few different labs, and what I would just say is a good place to start is if you see a lab where you're thinking, oh, this is within the price range that I can afford, or I just want to start somewhere. Again, starting by going into your primary care physician is probably the best place to start. And then if you're looking for something like a food sensitivity panel, maybe one of the easier to there's less barriers as far as getting like a gut health panel run.
Right.
There's several that are very, very, very affordable. And as you mentioned, like you can easily do them at home. That it's just a good place to start. Now, are they as accurate as they could be? It sort of depends on the test. Is it a waste of money? Not necessarily. So what I do when people come into my office with those tests is we say, okay, well, let's take this into consideration, and then we can add a few other things into it.
Right.
And then that puts together that whole picture for us, because ultimately what you're trying to do is just make sure that everything in all these different areas has everything that it needs in order to function well. And part of that is that we have so many different systems, right, going on in the body. That's your detox system and your cardiovascular system and your gut, right, and your brain. And we tend to think of them all in isolation. So like when you get a food sensitivity panel, we're just looking at food sensitivities that might be causing symptoms. But what I do is I say, hey, well, food sensitivities come from the gut. Yep. So if you get a food sensitivity panel, what I want to do is I want to look at the gut and I want to see what's happening there so that we can actually get to the root cause versus just treat the symptoms.
Right. Right. That's brilliant.
So
That's
hopefully
brilliant.
that makes sense.
Yes. So, okay, in the show notes, we're going to put all the ways to follow you. And if people wanted more information, I know you have a lot of resources. Can you tell us, maybe highlight one or two, like if they come in to your website or they follow your social media, that they could quickly activate?
Yeah, so you can easily follow me on social media at drkirstin.com, or just Dr. Kirstin at Dr. Kirstin. That's it. You can follow the link in the show notes. The other thing is I have a podcast. It's called the Fit and Healthy Athlete Podcast. And then you can also get a free guide from me where I walk you through all of these really simple steps of nutrient deficiencies and gut health, and really how to perform really, really, really well, like at your peak performance. What do you need to make sure like all these boxes are checked? And you can do that at drkirstin.com/finish strong. And that's KIRSTIN. So
fabulous. I knew you were going to bring some goodies along, and you're so generous. And yes, her podcast is amazing. It has tips. Even if you're not an endurance athlete, I learn something every single time, and I think other people will too. So definitely check that out. Okay, here's how we finish every show. It's my favorite. I mean, I learned so much from everybody, but I got to be honest. My favorite part of the show is when people tell me what their own definition is of what it means to sparkle. Okay, Dr. K, what's your definition?
Okay. My definition of what it means to sparkle is something that I have learned over time, which is that when I come into contact with anybody, what I want them to leave my space with is feeling better, feeling more abundant, improved in some way. And that to me is what it really means to sparkle, is that I just want to improve people's lives and be of service however I possibly can. And that's what it means to me to sparkle.
Oh my gosh, what an amazing definition. And you literally embody abundance. And I know every time I am privileged enough to be in a room with you, you just shine. So I want to thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us and this audience today. Be sure and follow her and find out more about what functional medicine is. If you don't know what that is, you really need to be adding a functional medicine practitioner to your repertoire of health practitioners. And next time, I don't want you to miss out, because next time we're going to continue kind of our wellness journey this month. And next time in our wellness chat, we're going to feature a wellness warrior who is a high-powered attorney that you've probably seen on TV. And she got so burned out that she started her own wellness practice for high performing corporate people who can't do a full day, but can do wellness in different chunks. So I can't wait for you to meet Carla. And this is the Thought Leader Thursday. I am Suzanne. This was Dr. K, and I will see you next time.